Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker, and today we're talking about you and do you hate technology? And the reason I ask is because I recently made a video that did pretty well actually about the Z900RS, the 2026 model of the Z900RS, and some of the comments were very pro the new technology and some were actually quite against. And personally, I'm a weird blend, right? I love seeing the progress. I love seeing the technology that is and can be available. But at the same time, I don't particularly want any of it. Like, almost none of it would sell a bike to me. Actually, honestly, none of it would sell a bike to me because, you know, if I was looking at a bike, I tend to still look almost entirely at the second-hand market, and generally older bikes. And I think it's weird though, because there's three kind of camps, right? There's the camp that's like, all technology is amazing and everyone should upgrade, and this goes for cars too, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you know, there's the camp that thinks everyone should upgrade, and you know, anything that's old and doesn't have all this new technology is defunct. And I say this as I ride a, you know, 750 pound and 380 kilo, something like that, motorcycle that has zero assist. It has no traction control. It has no ABS. It has nothing. It has a pretty basic ECU that tells the spark when to fire, and that is genuinely about it. So I'm odd though, because I do love quick shifters, and I think 6-axis IMUs and, you know, cornering ABS and all that stuff are genuinely amazing developments. But yeah, I do think 6-axis IMUs, cornering ABS, like I said, they're all really good technology. As is traction control, you know, like all of these things have almost certainly saved lives, and almost certainly saved people binning their bikes when they didn't need to. You know, I think that's honestly the part about technology. Divine crossings, wow, divine. That's a bit about technology that I think is almost inarguably good. But the three groups that I was talking about. There's the group that says all of it is amazing, and all of it should be used all the time. And then there's also the groups that think it's the devil and should never be on bikes. There's one comment I got that was like, it's manufacturers trying to tie you to the OEM and all this with the technology, and they really did like it. And then there's everyone in between. Like, I think, like me, I would consider myself in between, that I'm like, I love to see the tech, I don't need the tech, and the tech doesn't really sell a bike for me. And then also I will say, you know, that there is the very, very fair argument that if the tech adds a shed load of cost to the bike up front, maybe it should be an option rather than, you know, baked in. Now, and I do think as well that that's going away, right? I do think like that the likes of quick shifters and all that, and the IMUs, they're becoming so that they're not adding a massive amount of price to the bikes because they're getting cheaper to manufacture. That's kind of the story with all technology. But anyway, that's kind of a lot of this video. I'm really interested to know, which camp do you fall into? Do you think that technology on bikes is the be all and end all, and you know, if you don't upgrade your bike, you're just riding something that's unsafe and you're crazy? Like, should I just put this in the bin and go get a brand new bike? Or do you fall in between and just see that, you know, that a bike like this you have to ride differently, you have to be more careful of, you know, you can't just smash on the brakes. And there is that argument as well that I think is a fair one, is that, you know, are all the electronics making people worse riders? And I think to a degree, possibly. You know, and the ones that come to mind there are like the Honda e-clutch system. You know, that like a clutch isn't particularly difficult to use. Same as Honda's DCT and whatnot, and all of those kind of automatic assist stuff. And I realise I'm being hypocritical now, and I'll cover me being a hypocrite in a sec, but I do think to a degree, you know, if you don't know how to ride a fully manual clutch bike, I do think you're missing a piece of skill there, say. Now, whether that matters or not it's another question entirely. And first we'll cover me being a hypocrite in that I love quick shifters. I realise that is a little bit hypocritical because, like, honestly, what's the difference between like an e-torque system and a quick shifter? There's really not that big a difference, right? There's not. There's no way to get around that. Is they're very, very similar in how they function, right? Is it just a different type of branding, or is it just that the e-torque is like the evolution of quick shifters and it's a little bit more useful? There's a lot of things to be said, you know, for that, and I do realise that, and I recognise that me is a huge proponent of quick shifters, and I think they're really fun, and I love them being on bikes. I do get that me slating e-torque especially and that type of assisted shift, yeah, is a little bit hypocritical. I get it. Before anyone comes in shouting at me, I get it. I don't disagree. DCT and stuff, there's a different argument to be made there, and I do think that's probably a fairer one if people think that that's making people not even worse riders, but riders that just don't have the same skill set, say, as ones that came before them. And I do think, you know, if you look at people who grew up riding bikes in the 80s and 90s, which is not me, by the way. I was born in 92, so I was 8 when the 90s finished, so that was not me. I'm not claiming myself as part of this group, but people I know who grew up riding in the 80s and 90s are by and large like properly good riders, because they rode bikes that had no assist, and also, like, you know, all these bikes that historically have been identified as like widowmakers and stuff. Those are bikes that you know, people grew up back then just kind of riding around the problems that some people considered lethal. So I'm going to stop into Harris Teeter Fuels here to get more non-ethanol fuel into this, because I'm on my way on this route, which I didn't actually realise. So I'm going to talk to you again once we've fueled up and are back on the road. Okay, we're back on the road after fueling up, and MPG was about as expected, even with me. I was doing some more pulls on this today, so I think this bike sits around 30 to 32 US MPG no matter what. So between 7 and 8 litres per 100 kilometers, which for a bike that's running on 6 carbs and that's built for, you know, more as a muscle cruiser than anything else, I think is pretty good. But yeah, so what were we talking about? Me being a hypocrite? Yes, I am a little bit of one there, but on the other side of that, like on the flip side of that coin, where we're saying that, you know, technology is making people not even, I'm not going to say worse riders. I know some people would say that. For me, I'm just going to say less skilled. I think that is the craziest thing I've ever seen, a drive-on leaf blower. The flip side of me saying, like, you know, makes people less skilled or whatever, is that it also makes the barrier to entry on bikes lower. And I do think if you can build the basic skills of operating a bike, you know, brakes, throttle, go, stop, you know, without worrying about the gears as much, I think that only benefits us as a bike riding society going forward. Because, you know, ever since I've been alive, people have been talking about the death of the motorcycle industry. Now, personally, I think it's still quite healthy, and I love to see it. But I do think, obviously, as the world changes, and I think it's a fact that people now are more risk averse. Now, I think over here in America, that's largely because, you know, if you get hurt, you can go broke for the rest of your life due to the insurance system and healthcare system over here. And I don't know enough about that to comment anything other than, you know, if someone gets badly hurt, like, there is actually no cap technically. So, you know, people get mad at me when I say it and say, like, oh no, you're wrong that you know our healthcare system doesn't do that, but it does. I mean, the stories wouldn't be out there unless they happen. So whether that be through someone not having insurance because they didn't think of it or whatever, it doesn't matter. The fact that it's possible is what makes it bad, right? In my opinion. And I do think that might be playing into the risk aversion here, whereas in Europe and stuff, I don't know. I honestly can't tell you, but I do think, you know, people being sensible about their health and trying to look after themselves, I'm not gonna talk down to that. I think that's, as someone with a lot of injuries that don't improve my quality of life on a daily basis, that I could have avoided some of. I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? It's fair enough. If I could go back and make some decisions differently, I probably would. But at the same time, I mean, you know, all that stuff is what made me who I am. So, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, so I think that no matter what way you cut it, people are statistically now more risk averse. And I think giving them options that allows them to learn riding motorcycles in a safer manner is not a bad thing, right? That's something that is by and large good. Like I said, so that I feel like people who are like vehemently for all of technology and old bikes, and these people do exist, by the way. Like, I've had people, I still get angry comments from people because the videos I've made riding DCT bikes and whatnot, and I've stated pretty clearly I think it's a good technology, I just don't want it. I still have people angry messaging me telling me that I'm silly and this is the next step in motorcycle evolution, and you know, people like me hold it back and I suck and I'm terrible. And like, if that's you, I think you're unhinged, because I don't think there's any, unless technology is used for literal evil, I don't think it's bad, right? So I don't think old bikes without assists and nannies and safeguards, I don't think any of that's bad, and I don't think bikes with all of those things are bad. I think it's another option for people, right? And that's, like I said, that's only a good thing. Besides, someone just drove past and the smell of the special cigarettes, we'll call them, because YouTube doesn't like certain words, was very strong. And that's crazy over here that people do that and just drive and think it's okay, and it's very common. I smell it all the time. So yeah, I think that, you know, the vehemently for the technology are unhinged, but I also think people who are vehemently against technology are equally as unhinged, you know, that think that, you know, manufacturers are scheming to lock them in. I don't think that's it. I think manufacturers are following the market, right? People want more of this technology, so they're putting more of this technology on their bikes because that's what's making them sell. Would I love a stripped down, cheaper version available of these bikes that doesn't have that tech? Sure. But then you have to remember that there's legalities there, that like ABS is a legal requirement in Europe now. It's not over here, and there are still bikes available that don't come with ABS and stuff, which is a good thing. Like the KLR and stuff was available without ABS. That's good. I'm glad that exists. But I think assuming that, you know, all bike manufacturers are part of this evil empire, you know, that's trying to make us all cyborgs, is equally as unhinged as people who think that me riding this is a danger to all of society. I think that most people do fall in the middle somewhere, and again, you're going to lean more towards one way or the other on this tech talk stuff. But like for me, I do look at it and think, yeah, you know, all this technology might make people worse riders, or like I said, less skilled riders, because I get that from looking at cars, right? And people cannot drive cars now, it's largely due to all the technology available. They're able to be on their phone. They have lane assist, so they're not as worried about crashing. They think that that's going to save them. They have, you know, radar cruise control, so they think that's going to save them. I think that has less of an effect on a motorcycle because you're still on a bike, right? You're not in a comfy car enclosed on all sides thinking like nothing can touch me. I am in my box of safety, not realizing how dangerous cars also still are. Cars are dangerous, people. You can get badly hurt or cease to exist if you crash a car, right? And that's just a fact. But at the same time, like I said, I do think if it brings more people into motorcycles, that's a good thing. But yeah, I think though that the argument we're saying that people are going to get lazy or whatever else with lots and lots and lots of tech, I do think that's probably something that cannot be avoided. I think that's just human nature, is when something's too easy and they're not engaged, they lose focus easier. You know, like with a bikes, the thing I like about bikes is they're a visceral, engaging experience. And I think the more you take away from that, the more you soften, the more I'm going to not be paying as much attention as I otherwise should be. Oh, yeah. Why are you going so slow? You know, as motorcyclists tend to enjoy, you know, bikes that are loud and whatnot. Not all motorcycles. I'm not painting us all one brush. Some people like a quiet bike, but a lot of people, they love hearing that mechanical noise and changing gears up and down and being on the brakes, being, you know, breaking into the apex of a corner and then, you know, getting back on the throttle out of it. All of that plays into it for me. And I do think, you know, the more technology you add that kind of takes away from that experience, the less people are going to be engaged, and that's a bad thing, right? So there is give and take there. But at the same time, I do think, like I said, all that technology, if it saves people from getting hurt, if it saves people from smashing the living daylights out of their bike, if it keeps people on bikes, if it gets people started on bikes, you know, I think all of those are good use cases. All of those are good things. You know, if someone's older and not able to change gears as much, which was probably going to be me at some stage because I already have injuries, like I said. You know, I think that's great. You know, if it keeps someone on a bike, you know, if it's all that extra stability to help someone balance a bit better, low speeds. You know, you have DCT. Oh, that's smoky. E-torque. All that's good. All of that is good. And like I said, if it gets more people into bikes, that's not even good. That's great, because then they can buy new bikes and sell them used, and I can get more of the used bikes. But yeah, I'm very interested to hear where everyone watching this falls in that, you know, those kind of three categories that I said. Are you 100% wholly for technology and thinks that it's, you know, are you that kind of insane person who thinks all tech is the way and anyone on older bikes should just get rid of them? Or are you, like I said, in the middle? Or are you really against tech? Let me know. I'm genuinely interested. I might even make a graph. The people, because I think this is just my theory. I think 5% of people, less than 5% of people, are like wildly for tech, and less than 5% of people are like vehemently against tech. So I might make an old bell curve. You know, I think most of us fall in the middle. I'm just interested to know. And if you don't, like, what are your concerns about adding lots of tech to bikes? Is it from a reliability and a maintenance perspective? You know, do you think it's going to be hard to keep bikes on the road in 30 years? Which, actually, I will add that on. I do think that if you look at the stuff that I found hard to get for this bike, it was all electronics and technology. That said, the more of the bikes that have those IMUs and all that fancy stuff, the more likely it's going to be supported for longer. And I do think maybe that's something that we need to push as a user base, is we need to push on manufacturers and lawmakers and all that to say that, you know, the right to repair stuff they have to support things for longer than 10 years, because like this bike is nearly as old as me. It's from 1998, 1997. Like, it's nearly 30 years old, and to say that this should just be not usable because I can't buy what would now be child's play to make the ECU for this. Like, you could shrink that ECU, you could definitely make one. I think that's stuff that should be regulated to support. Anyway, I'm in Clayton now, so I will end this video. But let me know your thoughts and opinions. I really like to read them and respond to them and talk to y'all. And that's ye all, by the way, the Irish way, not y'all. I don't say y'all, I say ye all. Y-E space all. Very similar, but different. And yeah, that's it. Let me know your opinions down in the comments, please. I will respond and have a conversation with you. I'm interested. And that's it. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. As always, a very special thank you to all of my patrons. I do appreciate your support and attention. And until next time, thanks again. Adios. Outro crew. If you could pick one technology that you have to have on your bike, or one technology that you absolutely never want on your bike, what would they be? But two answers. What's the one you absolutely cannot be without, and what's the one that you really wish didn't exist at all? For me, it's like phone connectivity. I don't understand why I need to connect my phone to my bike. Anywho, let me know, outro crew. Bye, outro crew.